Moving on now, a networking tool called Raw Sockets in Windows XP gives hackers a door to slip through. Security specialist Steve Gibson has been trying to talk Microsoft into fixing it, but his warnings are falling on deaf ears. Call for Help's Phil Allingham joins us now with an in-depth look at the problem. Phil.
Thanks, Stacy. Well, the issue is around raw sockets, and what a raw socket allows is for data to be sent from a computer out onto the internet, sort of bypassing the TCP protocol. Now, what that allows it to happen is that that packet can be formed any way that it wants to be, or the way the OS says it should be, and it can make it untraceable. So in a denial of service attack, if they tried to trace it back to those individual machines and who those zombies are, they wouldn't be able to do it. Now, it's going to be available in Windows XP, and Steve Gibson from Gibson Research has been at the forefront of talking to Microsoft about backing out of making that available to every user for Windows XP. Steve, are you there?
I'm here. Glad to be here.
Well, thanks for being here. Now, given that raw sockets, they're available through Unix, even OS X has them available, even older versions of Windows. So what's the concern with Windows XP specifically?
Well, actually, older versions of Windows had a safe, sort of a partial raw socket that was only powerful enough to use ping and traceroute commands. So no prior versions, except for Windows 2000, is where this began, were really a problem. With XP, the problem is that everyone runs as an administrator. In order for Microsoft's legacy software that they're trying to move, everyone from Windows 9X and Millennium up into Windows XP, what they've had to do is they've had to give everyone administrative privileges. On Unix and Linux machines, historically, the power of raw sockets has been deliberately limited and restricted from anyone who didn't have maximum root privileges on the system. So what's happening is, sort of as a consequence of the fact that XP needs to run with administrative privileges, everyone's going to have this sort of really prone to abuse technology available.
Now, Microsoft has been listening to what you've been having to say, and they've actually have a response back to you saying along the lines that there still needs to be malicious code and that Windows XP is still the most secure operating system that they have available and have ever put out. What's your take on that?
Well, what they were saying was that raw sockets were not a problem, that the real problem was in keeping bad stuff out of the user system. And that's certainly a problem too. They've also been claiming that they needed raw sockets in XP. This is really where, we've sort of been arguing the same thing. They need it for the system. I'm saying that users don't need to have access to it. And that's why I created the Socket to Me and the Socket Lock utilities to really demonstrate and drive home the point that user accounts don't need raw sockets. It's fine for the system to have them in the background, but just don't let programs that users are running have access to this, because, it'll allow much more potent internet attacks.
Now, and what would you like Microsoft to do specifically at this late date, given that XP is so close to going gold at this point?
I wrote to them on Sunday and really made one last plea to them, saying, look, just allow the system to have raw sockets. Don't let the users have it. I got mail back saying, they're discussing it with the developers. So I still hold out hope.
So you think Microsoft's going to budge at all?
I think the problem is, in a couple of years, when exploits come out that use raw sockets, no one's going to care, except they're going to see XP as being, this dangerous internet appliance.
Well, thanks a lot for that, Steve. And I know that you have made some software available on your site, which is grc.com, for people who are using Windows NT in 2000 right now.
Yep,
and they can actually lock that machine down.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Steve.
Thank you.
Stacy?
Phil and Steve, thank you so much for that report.